All right, welcome back. Let's look at a lesson 12, authoritarianism. I have a very creaky chair. So now that you've looked at lesson 12, are there some key terms that you think that might end up populating your multiple choice? Yes, sir. Sorry? Enrichment. Yeah, nope, it won't be on there. I'll just blatantly say no, you're not going to see that. When I use the word enrichment in these lessons, that's just basically a word that says, you don't really need to know what's about to follow, but have fun with this if you want. But it's not really a curriculum outcome, the word enrichment. Any other building blocks in this lesson that you're like, yeah, you know what, I bet we see those. Yes, sir? Efficiency. Yeah, you could see the word efficiency. Techniques of dictatorship would be more of a social studies term, right? So we're definitely going to have some multiple choice questions on those. So what you want to do before the exam is understand what each of them are and an example of them. So this is what indoctrination is. This is what propaganda is. This is how they're similar, but this is how they're different. This is what force and terror and intimidation looks like. This is what a purge was under Hitler or Stalin. Scapegoating. Forced or controlled participation. Pageantry. These sorts of things. So techniques of dictatorship. Definitely going to be on the test. Anything else? Yes?
Justification for authoritarianism.
Yeah, you might have an argument in favor of authoritarianism and you have to unpack it. Let's take a look at the lesson together then. Beginning of the lesson talks about the origin of authoritarianism, and more specifically the word dictator. So if I wanted to test you on the history part of the course, I might test you on the ancient Roman use of the idea of dictator, to dictate. I think some of you had that on your A1. There was some of the A1 sources that talked about that. How does one gain power? Through a monarchy, through elections, through control of the party, through guerrilla warfare. If you're going to have an essay on dictatorships, it might look at how one doesn't necessarily maintain power, but how do they gain power, and try to distinguish between the gaining and the maintaining of power under authoritarianism. This is how they gain power. Probably not going to see that on a multiple choice test. But the distinguishing between gaining and maintaining power, and how the life as a citizen under someone gaining and maintaining power makes life less livable, that's an essay question. The origins of totalitarianism. You could see this concept coming into multiple choice, this idea that whether it's fascism or communism or some sort of theocracy, Islamic fundamentalism, that these totalitarian ideologies, they see themselves as an expression of something that is inevitable, that we are a natural force in history. How do dictators maintain power? Again, we'll look at the techniques of dictatorship. I would read through this section maybe once before the test on Friday, but this is more to help you with the essay than the multiple choice. Some good stuff there, though. Here's your argumentation or justification for authoritarianism. The main argument for authoritarianism is that the alternative, liberal democracies, they're weak, they're inefficient. So the idea of efficiency, right? That's where you came up with the word efficiency. That's the application of it. That liberal democracies are fragile because they need dissent and discontent and debate and opposition. It makes them fragile, makes them inefficient. You might see a quote from Hobbes. You might see this quote from Hobbes. So we understand Hobbes quite well in our cast of characters. That Hobbes is pro-authoritarianism, believes that we must conform to or adhere to social norms, that individual rights and freedoms, if they're promoted, will actually lead to lower quality of life because of our human nature. because we are aggressive, because we are violent, because we are selfish, then life without control would be nasty, brutish, and short. So we sacrifice our natural freedom to the Leviathan. So seems like Hobbes is highlighted here a lot. Now, what would a Leviathan today look like? And to what extent would a Leviathan today be someone that even a liberal would be in favor of? So what kind of Leviathan would someone like Justin Trudeau, who's in favor of democracy, what kind of dictator would he say, well, you know what, at least the Leviathan's doing something good? So we have the idea of a benevolent dictator, a benevolent, right, a good dictator, versus a malevolent, a bad one. So there might be some actions within a dictatorship where someone who likes liberal democracy would look in and say, well, you know what, they're accomplishing this. The people are fed. They ended that famine. You know, kudos to Muammar Gaddafi for having one of the highest, or maybe the highest quality of life for all African people because of his centralization of authority. So there is this idea that there would be modern Leviathans that people would look in, and even those who value freedom might look in and say, well, I have to give you kudos for this. We've talked about Machiavelli, the ends justify the means, mostly when we look at Stalin and the 5-year plans. We talk about Nietzsche and the Übermensch, and the Übermensch isn't just like this superhuman, this idea that, you know, they're better than us. Übermensch is the idea of overcoming myself, overcoming my own limitations, overcoming my own faults and flaws. Carlyle, the great man theory, that some are more capable and they should lead, looks a lot like Plato's Philosopher Kings. We have a quote from Adolf Hitler that we could use to criticize democracy here, that, you know, how would you expect to have 100, or in the case of Germany, 500 true qualified leaders to come out of a popularity contest? You know, democracy is about popularity. It's not about efficiency. It's not about effectiveness. It's not about capability. That if you want capable leaders, we need a meritocracy. Authoritarianism, many people like because it offers longevity, security, and stability. Keeps us connected to the great chain of being. So scapegoats, that's the redirection of popular discontent. Like, you're not unhappy with me, you're unhappy with the kulaks. You're unhappy with the Ukrainians. You're unhappy with the Arabs. You're unhappy with the Jewish people. You're unhappy with the Albertans. You're unhappy with someone else. No, it's the teachers. They're the bad guys. You know, we celebrated them 2 years ago for being frontline workers. Now teachers are grooming our kids to be left-wing radicals. You know, there's always some redirection of popular discontent. That's scapegoating. Propaganda is a conscious and intelligent manipulation of the habits and opinions of the masses. Connected to that in a longer-term sense might be indoctrination. The idea of purposely engineering people's thoughts through education, through simple, guided ideas like, you know, we're going to teach you how to read, but at the same time we're going to teach you how to hate by looking at the poisonous mushroom. Cult of personality connects more with fascism than communism as one of the techniques of dictatorship. Ultranationalism connects more with fascism than communism. Control of the media. The media becomes the loudspeaker of government. Controlled participation. We might still have elections, but they're rigged. We might have rallies that make you feel like you're a part of a greater movement, greater than you or I. But in the rally, it's just my way of controlling you. And that's lesson 12. Any final questions on our introduction to authoritarianism? So one of the concerns I have is that sometimes people will use the word communism and think that that is a substitute for the word authoritarianism. It's not. Communism's one flavor of authoritarianism, but so is fascism, but so is many other versions, like Islamic fundamentalism. So, often, when you use the word communism, you might mean authoritarianism. If you're trying to use a word that both Hitler and Stalin fit under, the word is authoritarianism, not communism. And if we make that mistake on an essay, we look a little confused. And that's 40%, not 100. So authoritarianism is an umbrella big enough for both Hitler and Stalin. Communism is not. Communism was Stalin's ideology. Fascism is Hitler's. All right, so we'll stop that there.